Scanning for audio.
Hello, welcome to another Tin Dog podcast. Now this time I'm going to be reviewing something a little bit different. It's not Doctor Who, it is based on a TV series from the past, but it's not what you're expecting. Because Big Finish have produced a piece of work that is, well, if you're in the UK, you're almost guaranteed to have grown up watching, or at least knowing about the TV series Dad's Army. For those of you who don't know, during the Second World War, there was the very, very likely probability of an invasion of the Nazis / Germans across the Channel or across the North Sea, Operation Sea Lion, I believe it was called, and they would invade the UK. And the Home Defence Volunteers were created as a kind of extra line of defence. They were the official line. There were, of course, hidden SOE type operatives who would disguise themselves as ordinary members of the public after the event of the invasion, and they're highly trained, skilled spy type people who would then cause terrorism and create insurgents and eventually try and fight them that way. They were all in place, but this was the official people who were too old or too young or weren't able to actually partake in the war as an army person. See, it all sounds a bit dry and a bit scary. And this is the world of Dad's Army. This is the world that one of the most successful sitcoms, about 80-odd episodes, was created to be in. And the BBC were rightly nervous, except it is absolutely beloved because it was filmed in the late 60s, 70s, and is set firmly 20, 30 years earlier. You've instantly got nostalgia for the audience of a time that they fondly remember. And it's a very British thing, fondly remembering the war. Because even their other sitcoms, like Heidi High, which was set firmly, again, 20, 30 years earlier, this one was set in the 50s, the only one of the time that was set actually at that moment was Are You Being Served? And even then, that was nostalgia for a type of shop that never worked. These are the writers who time and time again produced hit after hit of the sitcom type. Now, things like Are You Being Served were more of your carry-on end of things because they were a bit, sounds a bit rude, but Dad's Army had a very folksy quality and its cast was perfect. So that's the background for this. What we've actually got from Big Finish is the Dad's Army radio show. Now I've got to be very precise on this one. Written by Jimmy Perry and David Croft, and they're the people who wrote the original Dad's Army scripts, many of which were adapted for radio. And they were re-recorded in a radio studio, and those were often available on vinyl, because that's the sort of thing we did back in the 70s. We could listen to our favourite radio shows in those formats. Well, now we've got MP3, we've got access to everything. But we didn't then. And these, of course, were never repeated, despite the fact that years later on UK Gold they're on all the time. Some of the episodes are missing. These things are all gone in. So, into this world steps, and you would expect it being an ensemble cast for a radio version to have a gigantic cast of about 20. This has got a cast of 2. 2 people have reproduced every single identifiable and well-beloved characters, and they do this with impressions on stage. Now, in my experience, and just bear with me, there are 2 types of impressionist. You've got the channeler and you've got the caricaturist. Now, some of the caricaturists, like the guy who's doing the Brigadier for Big Finish, normally when he's doing his political stuff, he takes the characteristics and exaggerates them and turns them into identifiable but horrendously obscure versions. But then there's the channelers, and the channelers are the 2 people who've created and adapted and perform this piece because of their love for the show and of the performers originally involved. They have managed to produce something beautiful. You've got Jack Lane and David Benson. Now, David Benson, for you Big Finish people out there, is the guy who does Panda with Iris Wildtime, and he also was in Goodnight Sweetheart as Noel Coward. He toured as Kenneth Williams for years, and Jack Lane did something similar with Norman Wisdom. And that's how they met, and they got together and said, we must do this. Now, into this world, you've got Jason Hay Gallery producing the audio version, the recording of this live stage performance. This is recorded in front of an audience. This is 3 original TV stories performed as radio performances for us, and the characterization and performances are so ludicrously accurate that you forget after about a minute and a half that it's 2 people doing about 20 people. The cast list's ridiculous. You've got 2 people and then there's a list of all of the characters they're performing after. It's just bizarre. It's absolutely well beloved because you've got 3 specific stories. Now, one of them has Arthur Lowe on TV with the very famous split screen thing playing him and his brother. But because you've got 2 actors playing the same parts, you've got, well, you can imagine. And yet on audio they work exquisitely well. You're there with the audience. Now, apparently, when you see this live, you kind of fade out a bit as an audience member. You're still laughing along. But what you're doing is you're imagining the performances of the other people who are mostly dead in front of you because you can hear their voices. These characters, these performers are channeling the originals, and they are good. Oh my God, they're good. You don't go, who's he being now? You just go, that's the vicar, that's the verger. And if you know the original show and you love it, God, you need to get this. Yes, I'm reviewing it because it happens to be part of Big Finish's output, and I get sent these things to review. But trust me, I absolutely had a blast listening to this because audio drama, audio comedy was where I was at growing up. I really was, and this just plays straight into that. Yes, I've loved the Doctor Who and everything, but audio comedy, that was me all over. And this just absolutely was in my wheelhouse, and I needed to review it and tell you all about it because I just loved it. You've got your 3 stories. You've got When You've Got to Go, which is the one where Pike has to sign up and join the Air Force. Which is a great feeling because as obviously the actor was getting older, you would think he'd be leaving the show. So they had to find a way of keeping him there, and that worked. And if you're in another country and you don't know what any of this is, it might not appeal to you, but might not really hit the ground with you, and that is fine. But if you are familiar with Dad's Army, this is an absolute gem because you're there with the audience and it was recorded live. Not in a studio, it was just beautifully done. And the extras, well, they're worth a listen to too. Here's a trailer and decide for yourself. But I just loved it. 10 out of 10, seriously. Well done, Big Finish, for going, let's do something a bit different. And they've managed it, and it's just damn fine. I would start singing the theme tune, but I just don't want to. Until next time, be seeing you.
From Big Finish Productions, Dad's Army, the radio show.
Men are ready for you, Captain Man.
Yes, thank you, Wilson. All right, settle down. What a marvellous spirit we have here, Wilson.
Yes, absolutely marvellous.
Yes, I'm going to talk to the men.
Oh, are you ready, sir?
Now, pay attention, men. Now, just a minute. Where's Jones?
He's no here. Mark him absent without leave.
Yeah, all right. Pay attention now. Now, to mark his departure...
Here comes the old fool now.
Right, pay attention to the officer. Not to run, pay attention to him now. 3 nice, neat lines. Pay attention to the officer.
Oh, dear. I do hope there'll be enough cucumber sandwiches. Hello, Napoleon. What's all this mothers' meeting?
Would you mind not barging into my office without knocking? Well, we're ready when you are, Vicar.
Off we go, then. Come along. Remember, I want a solemn undertaking. No confetti. No confetti. Oh, do come along, Mr. Yankee. Pike, what's all that purple stuff on your hand?
Oh, no need to worry about that, Uncle Arthur. No, it's a gobstopper, look.
You stupid boy.
Big Finish, for the love of stories.
That was the Tin Dog Podcast. Everything discussed is the intellectual property of others. No infringement is intended. For early access to reviews, follow the show on YouTube or Twitter @TinDogPodcast. To contact the show, email tin-dog@hotmail.co.uk. The Tin Dog Podcast is a founder member of the Doctor Who Podcast Alliance.